ad agencies sell this myth that, you need all of these people to create a world-class ad. And the reality is it's just not true, especially with all of today's technologies. The video production game has been completely democratized, and it's completely possible to create world-class advertising without all of those people. You don't need so many people on set. A big ad agency will literally have 100 people on set. And the reality is they don't even make the ad. They think of the ads, they create the concepts for the ad, but when it's time to make them, they farm the production work out to a production company. And I like to talk about this in corporations overall. After working in corporations for the greater part of 10 or 15 years, I was like, there's only about 5% of the people here that are doing the actual work. And right? And 95% of the people are
just scrolling along there.
They're just going to meetings. They're managing other people. They're responding to emails, making status reports about the people that are actually doing the work. And that's the reality. And
when Elon Musk bought Twitter, right away, he was firing people one after another. And we were like, God damn, how many people do you really need there? And he realized that you didn't need most of those people. So he took out like 70% or 80% of everybody.
Is that you can skip the big ad agencies and go direct to production and save yourself a ton of money.
Wow. So yeah, they make you do all the steps with different procedures when everything could be done at one spot, and even easier.
That's right. And then a lot of times the ad agencies are doing work that's not even to your benefit, that it's work that benefits the agency, meaning agencies don't really care if they're selling your product. Agencies are in the business of selling themselves. And then when you get into like television advertising, radio, out of home, it's really a lot harder to track those individual metrics. You don't know if anybody is buying directly from your television ad. All you're dealing with is secondary metrics at that point. So it's great to have that grounding to know what actually works and doesn't work from digital before I started getting into broadcast.
And probably when people are at home watching television, like you can't know how many people of the family are really watching the TV compared to like cell phones now, that you know exactly that person is a girl, 32 years old. She's interested in our product or whatever. So for sure, like TV can never be as precise as cell phones now or social medias that are just right on point there.
That's exactly right. And actually, to your point, you don't know, even if you know that they're watching the ad, you don't know that they're watching the ad. Like everybody's got cell phones in their hands while they're watching TV. So yeah, there's really no hard metrics there. Everybody's over focused on breakthrough, right? Just shock factor.
Yeah.
You see this in gum commercials all the time, right? Because what else do they have to talk about? And so they just do crazy, crazy things to make the commercial break through. But then that's great. But if if they fall flat on the rest of the metrics, then the ad didn't do anything. For example, I'm sure you've had people do this all the time where they're like, I saw the greatest ad on TV last night, and they start to describe it. And you're like, oh, who was it for? And they're like, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's not a good ad. That ad
exactly
failed, right?
Exactly.
The criteria would be like, who's actually doing the work, right? There's so many layers of account people and creative people, and a lot of them are just managers, right? A lot of them are not doing the actual work. Especially, I would say the biggest part of that is the account managers. Like on our accounts, we would have a VP account director, and then an account director, and then an account supervisor, then an account manager, then an account executive, and then associate account executives. And like, let me tell you, if you are a client and you have associate account executives on your account, you are paying for stuff you do not need.
Wow.
Well, I think there's there's way too much bloat in the system, right? There's just way too many people that are doing stuff that is not necessary or not in the client's best interest, for sure. And then the other thing is, the basic setup of the industry is that the ad agencies think of the ads, but they don't produce them. So they farm out that work to production companies. Now, production company is going to do all of the filming, the editing, not the editing, all of the filming, and they'll create the raw footage, and then it's going to go to a third company, which is a post-production company. Now they're going to do all of the editing, right? They're going to get it into near final shape, and then to add all of the motion graphics, any special effects, any of the superimposed text, that is going to go to a visual effects company. So what's happening is, right, then the client's paying for 4 different companies, right? And all that does is add cost and complexity. Now, the reality is that there's now creative production agencies like Wild Gravity, where it has creative production, post, and VFX all under one roof. And that allows companies like ours to produce work that's much, much quicker, better,
and more precise of the object.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And clients love that, right? And when they learn that, like, a lot of clients have no idea that was even possible. And so it's very refreshing to all those clients.
It makes me think of, I mean, elementary school, you used to the phone game.
Oh, yeah.
You tell something to your friend he needs. Well, when there's 4 people going through, like the direction that the client wanted initially is probably not what we're getting at the end of the road by 4 different companies.
That's exactly right. Like, the more people you distribute the work around, the more the message is going to get confused.
Welcome to the Rumbling Facts podcast, people. This is your #1 destination to challenge the status quo, think outside the box, dissect the system, and challenge illusions to extract raw and unfiltered wisdom every show, no matter how it rumbles your perspective. Welcome to the Rumbling Facts podcast, my dogs. This is where our guests' uncomfortable truths of life collides with our reality to fast track our learning of this life. And this is where critical thinking is promoted to make our guests and the Rumbling Facts tribe get out of their comfort zone and think outside the box for themselves. I'm your host, Sam, aka DjRetsam, on all music platforms. We're at 225,000 streams since January 23rd, so that's quite incredible. I'm a rapper, podcaster, truth seeker to the core, and the founder of Making Others Read, a nonprofit that I take unwanted books that people don't want anymore and give them back to the communities, because knowledge is power and it should never be wasted. Whether you're building yourself up or growing a company or waking up to the lies that you've been sold, this is the type of conversation that you don't even know you needed. Rumbling Facts, people, isn't about the easy answers. It's about the truth bombs that shake the views of different opinions and your perspective. Today's guest there is a true legend in the advertising world. He started in Boston, sold wave radios for Bose over the phone, and ran a $20 million sales team while earning his MBA at night, and then leveled up to lead major companies like giants like GM, AT&T, Microsoft, and Fidelity. But after years of him watching the ad agencies bleed money and being ineffective like they should, he did something that most people wouldn't even have the guts to do. He walked away from the comfort of that corporate and built his own savage ad agency from scratch. Wild Gravity, no capital, no employees, no buildings, just a mission to prove that world-class creativity could be faster, smarter, and cheaper. And within 3 months, he was working with trillion-dollar clients, people. And by the way, he's also the author of Hacking Advertise, a book that exposes the problems with legacy marketing and delivers a new blueprint for the future of advertising. Jon Sneider is here to break the myth, drop some strategies, and show us how the market is really. Welcome to the podcast, Jon. How you doing today?
Hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Man, it was such an honor just to know that you wanted to come on there, and man, you accomplished so much in this life. How did you get from selling wave radios for Bose and then okay, let's go in advertising? How did that happen there?
Yeah, sure. I was working for Bose Corporation doing telesales, and then ended up managing a sales team doing $20 million a year in business. And Bose paid for me to get my master's, my MBA.
Wow.
And after that, I got recruited by one of the earliest digital marketing agencies called Digitas, and I started working for them in 2000. They're an interactive ad agency, and they had clients, huge clients like AT&T, GM, Microsoft, and a lot of others. And I got my feet wet there, running digital campaigns, mostly for General Motors. And we were young kids. I mean, 20s
Yeah,
kids,
yeah.
right? Right. But we were running, building websites, building banner campaigns, emails, etc., all of the basic building blocks of early digital marketing. And that's how I got my start.
Wow.
And then it wasn't until a couple steps later that I ended up broadening and going out into broadcast advertising.
Wow. So you were really not just doing like the ad, you were doing the banners, like the flyers, like everything that had to do with advertising.
That's right. And I'm so glad that I got my start doing digital marketing, because that's really where you get down to the brass tacks. You see what's working, what's not working. You get all of the major metrics. And then when you get into like television advertising, radio, out of home, it's really a lot harder to track those individual metrics. You don't know if anybody's buying directly from your television ad.
Yeah, yeah.
All you're dealing with is secondary metrics at that point. So it's great to have that grounding to know what actually works and doesn't work from digital before I started getting into broadcast.
And probably when people are at home watching television, like you can't know how many people of the family are really watching the TV compared to like cell phones now that you know exactly
Sure.
that person is a girl 32 years old, she's interested in our product or whatever. So for sure, like TV can never be as precise as cell phones now or social medias that are just right on point there.
That's exactly right. And actually, to your point, you don't know, even if you know that they're watching the ad, you don't know that they're watching the ad. Like
True.
everybody's got cell phones in their hands while they're watching TV. So,
Yeah.
yeah, there's really no hard metrics there.
Absolutely. What do you think was one of the biggest lies traditional ad agencies still sell, and why does it keep working?
Um, well, big ad agencies sell this myth that, you need all of these people to create a world-class ad. And the reality is it's just not true, especially with all of today's technologies. The video production game has been completely democratized, and it's completely possible to create world-class advertising without all of those people. You don't need so many people on set. A big ad agency will literally have 100 people on set. And the reality is they don't even make the ad. They think of the ads, they create the concepts for the ad, but when it's time to make them, they farm the production work out to a production company. So my whole premise is that you can skip the big ad agencies and go direct to production and save yourself a ton of money.
Mm. Wow. So yeah, they make you do all the steps with different procedures when everything could be done at one spot and even easier.
That's right. And then a lot of times the ad agencies are doing work that's not even to your benefit, that it's work that benefits the agency, meaning agencies don't really care if they're selling your product. Agencies are in the business of selling themselves.
Yeah.
So agencies want to make advertising creative that they can win awards, right? That's their currency, is awards. So, and that means a lot of breakthrough, crazy creative that may work for your brand, but it may not. And their main focus is making stuff that works for them.
Hmm.
And then a lot of other stuff like testing that they engage in, like focus group testing. No ad was ever made better by going through focus group testing. But what it does for the agency, when the ad doesn't work, they can be like, well, that's what the focus group told us to do.
Wow. Well, when you were working with since you're working with $1 trillion brands, what was the most dysfunctional thing that you saw that actually worked? And you were like, oh, damn, okay, that works.
The most dysfunctional thing that worked? I don't know if there's a lot of dysfunctional things that work.
Or something that you didn't expect it to work and it did. You were like, okay, I didn't think about that could be working.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is when I worked for Microsoft, we were in the habit of, we worked with a huge agency, and when we went to create a campaign, that was something that would take about 3 months and cost like $4 to $6 million.
Oh shit.
And right. And then we were like, I guess that's what you have to do to make great work. But then my premise was there's got to be a different way that we can do this, and make it cheaper, faster, and actually better. And so I started developing a bunch of smaller vendors. And what I found is it was possible to make world-class work with smaller vendors. It just took a lot of work on our part. Stuff that the ad agency would do, we as the clients had to do. And fortunately, I had a lot of ad agency experience, so it was possible for me to do that. But a lot of clients don't have that experience. And so what happened was we worked with these smaller boutique agencies, and then we put our ads on digital platforms and tested them against the stuff we were getting from our big, huge agency. And we found the stuff that was working from our smaller vendors was performing better than the ads that we paid millions of dollars for.
Wow. Do some ad agencies work in royalties instead of that fee at the beginning? Like, us $2,000, we're going to create a huge, amazing ad for you. But is there some that are like, I don't want a cent and I just want royalty? Because I think, let's say if that does exist, I think the company's gonna fucking care of that commercial when it comes out, because if they want come back on it, if they got that 15 or 20% on it, they're gonna want that commercial to achieve that market or that ad to achieve, compared to being like, oh, give us our 2,000 and you send it to them and they give you that product back and they don't care how much it reaches people and everything at the end game because they already got paid.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of smaller agencies that are coming out now that do work like that.
Wow. Okay, I didn't know.
Right. Yeah, that they do work on incentives, but you will never find one of the larger ad agencies working like that.
For sure.
All of the big major ad agencies, they're working for fee. They want you to pay. You pay up front. A lot of ad agencies won't even take you unless you're committing to spend it like at least $500,000 or $1 million with them.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
So there's no Joe Blow just going there, hey, help me with a commercial. No.
Okay. Yeah. Not among the big boys.
Yeah. Wow. Because I think it's because they got a big name, so they're like, oh, we gotta make you pay. And I noticed the same thing when I was going to recording studios. They didn't care of the royalty. They didn't want to set off that. They wanted that 200 right away because it's a big company. So I literally had to find a producer that believed in me as much as I believe in myself to really have that royalty base that I have now with my new producer. But all the producers I had before, like, they didn't give a shit if that song was good when I left. Right. And man, I felt like a piece of shit at the end because you get screwed over. You don't have that good product. Like, they should care about that product. They don't need to. So that's a problem.
That's right. Yeah, that's a problem with most of the major ad agencies is at the end of the day, they don't really care how well your ad did. They don't really care how many products they sold. They care about what is the press that they can get on their ad. They care about, can I enter this ad in an awards contest?
Oh my goodness. It makes me think of one of I had a guy on for the DEA, and his boss didn't care about what needed to be done to arrest somebody, but the end game, he wanted the pictures with all the drugs. That was the only important, not the drugs off the streets really, but the award of seeing that the whole amount of money and stuff there. Man, you can't always wait for that end goal to be happy, for sure.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Do you think most CMOs actually understand their own brand, or are they faking it with big words and big budgets?
I mean, I think most CMOs understand their brand. What happens though is when they engage with big agencies, the agency will come in and be like, no, that's not what your brand is. This is what your brand is. And then agencies will come in, they have big strategy departments of their own. If you work for a big company like Microsoft, Amazon, Coca-Cola, Lego, they have internal strategy teams already. So it's like, why do you need the ad agency to come in with their strategy team when you already have a strategy team?
If you had to eliminate 80% of the ad industry, what's one criteria you'd use to decide who stays or not?
Yeah, I mean, the criteria would be like, who's actually doing the work, right? There's so many layers of account people and creative people, and a lot of them are just managers, right? A lot of them are not doing the actual work. Especially, I would say the biggest part of that is the account managers. Like on our accounts, we would have a VP account director, and then an account director, and then an account supervisor, then an account manager, then an account executive, and then associate account executives. And like, let me tell you, if you are a client and you have associate account executives on your account, you are paying for stuff you do not need.
Wow.
All you're doing is paying for the agency to be able to train their junior employees. You want the people that are actually moving the work along. And, you know, in our shop, Wild Gravity, we don't have account people. We just have producers, right? Producers produce, right? Producers make things. And that's the way that we designed our shop, Wild Gravity, is like, we only have the people that are actually making the actual work. We have camera people, we have writers, directors, producers, obviously, right?
Yeah.
And because we have small, flat teams, we can work so much faster than a big agency, and the work is actually better.
Well, for sure, when you got a whole football team just taking care of the finance, and like, damn, I gotta go through so many people, and who's really working in there? It's like there's
That's
too
right.
many people on one dossier. Like,
Yeah.
God damn.
Agencies are all about billable hours, and the more hours they can bill, the more money they make for the agency. But that in no way benefits the client.
So for uncomfortable truths of life, what's one of the hardest truth you realize in your career or life?
Realizing that there were so many people that are not actually doing the work. And then I like to talk about this in corporations overall. After working in corporations for the greater part of 10 or 15 years, I was like, there's only about 5% of the people here that are doing the actual work. And right? And 95% of the people are
just scrolling along there.
They're just going to meetings, they're managing other people, they're responding to emails, making status reports about the people that are actually doing the work. And that's the reality. And I've talked about this with other people at corporations, and they were like, that number might even be low. There might even be less people that are doing the actual work. And when I was there, I was the one that was doing the actual work.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I had all of these people around me, and the killer was other people getting success from the work that I was creating.
Oh my God. But I think we really saw it visually for all the citizens when Elon Musk bought Twitter. Right away, he was firing people one after another, and we were like, God damn, how many people do you really need there? And he realized that you didn't need most of those people, so he took out like 70% or 80% of everybody in Twitter, because you don't need thousands of people to control something there, or else it just less personalized and way less focused on that one thing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, in general, most corporations, almost every corporation has way too many managers and not enough people doing the actual work.
Wow. What's an aspect of marketing ads that you believe is misrepresented in movies or media?
Well, I think the glamour is certainly overrepresented. It's the ad industry is very glamorous, and there's an aspect of that, right? Sometimes you get to work with famous people. Filming a commercial can feel just like filming a Hollywood movie, and there is that. But the reality is, it's a grind. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of unglamorous aspects to the job, and I think the industry overall is presented as very, very glamorous.
Me and a lot of people I hear complain in Canada. I don't know if it's all the commercials in the US are similar, but we have so many commercials on television that you look at it, you're like, what the hell were they selling? Because what they're showing us, it doesn't even make sense. There was one that passed a year ago. There was a Bigfoot destroying like an apartment, and it was written at the end, Airbnb, like anybody can rent and rent their own place, and you have insurance, you're covered. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So the whole time, it's just a skit of a Bigfoot. The whole time you're like, what the hell? So why do you think commercials like their ad don't make sense of what they're trying to sell us?
Well, what happens is there's 5 main metrics for advertising, and a lot of companies and clients lose track of what they're trying to do. The five metrics are breakthrough, which is, do I remember seeing the ad? And then there's brand product recall, which is, do I remember who it was for, right? And then there's message recall, which is, do I remember what the message is? Do I remember what they were selling? Likability, which is obvious. Did I like it? And then at the end of the day, we're all trying to get to high purchase intent, meaning, do I intend to buy it, right? And what happens, like in an ad that you're describing, is everybody's over-focused on breakthrough.
On shock factor,
right? Just shock factor.
Yeah.
You see this in gum commercials all the time, right? Because what else do they have to talk about? And so they just do crazy things to make the commercial break through. But then that's great. But if if they fall flat on the rest of the metrics, then the ad didn't do anything. For example, I'm sure you've had people do this all the time where they're like, I saw the greatest ad on TV last night, and they start to describe it, and you're like, oh, who was it for? And they're like, I don't know.
Exactly.
Right? That's not a good ad. That ad
exactly
failed, right?
Exactly. Yeah. There was one in particular that I laughed so much because I was like, man, that is some funny shit. There was like a grandma at a farm, and the commercial at the beginning, it says like, we always want to do stuff on our own, but sometimes it's better for somebody else to do it. And for her, she's a hard-headed lady in a farmland, so she goes outside because there's full of crows, and you just see her walking towards the scarecrow that used to be there, and then she's on the stick of scarecrow, and she's yelling. Sometimes it's maybe not better for you to do on your own, and I found it hilarious. I was laughing so much. But then after, when I talked to one of my friends about it, he's like, what was it about? I have no fucking clue. Right. I don't know what they were selling, but it was funny.
Yeah, exactly. And that ad probably did great for the agency when they went to win awards, but it did shit for the client.
Oh yeah, that's it. What's something about the advertising community that you feel could be better understood or improved, like overall, like all the companies should start adapting something there?
Well, I think there's there's way too much bloat in the system, right? There's just way too many people that are doing stuff that is not necessary or not in the client's best interest, for sure. And then the other thing is the basic setup of the industry is that the ad agencies think of the ads, but they don't produce them. So they farm out that work to production companies. Now, a production company is going to do all of the filming, the editing, not the editing, all of the filming, and they'll create the raw footage, and then it's going to go to a third company, which is a post-production company. Now they're going to do all of the editing, right? They're going to get it into near final shape, and then to add all of the motion graphics, any special effects, any of the superimposed text, that is going to go to a visual effects company. So what's happening is, right, then the client's paying for 4 different companies, right? And all that does is add cost and complexity. Now, the reality is that there's now creative production agencies like Wild Gravity, where it has creative production, post, and VFX all under one roof. And that allows companies like ours to produce work that's much, much quicker, better,
and more precise of the object.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And clients love that. Right. And when they learn that, like, a lot of clients have no idea that was even possible. And so it's very refreshing to all those clients.
It makes me think of, in elementary school, you used to do the phone game. Oh, yeah. You tell something to your friend he needs. Well, when there's 4 people going through, like like the direction that the client wanted initially is probably not what we're getting at the end of the road by 4 different companies.
That's exactly right. Like the more people you distribute the work around, the more the message is going to get confused and lost.
Absolutely. What's an uncomfortable truth you had to accept about the way success or happiness is really achieved?
I would say that one of the most uncomfortable truths I had to deal with in my career was that people that were much better at politics, like internal work politics, could be more successful than people that were actually good at doing their job. And that a lot of times in corporations, it isn't the people that are the best workers that get the promotions and the titles. It's the people that are best at politics. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I used to have people that would basically they would present my work and they would get the promotion and I wouldn't. And I just was not as much of a political player. And that's probably at the end of the day, one of the reasons why I got out of the corporate world and started my own company.
And I think it's that for a lot of companies. For example, a complete different company, UFC. If you want to be a star, well, you're knocking people out. That's good. But if you're great with the microphone as well, like Conor McGregor example, right. you're gonna make fuck you money faster because people are gonna pay to see you get knocked out or knock somebody out. So having that mic, having good at politics, and knowing how to rile things up in your way for people to buy your product or your fight, you need to be good in politics for sure.
That's exactly right. That's a great analogy.
What's one of the biggest risks when you started launching Wild Gravity with no capital, and how did you psychologically handle all this risk and being like, okay, I'm just gonna let go of everything, start from scratch right here? When you had it all there, you could have just chilled your way to the top, but you didn't. You were like, fuck it, I'll go my own lane.
I mean, I had a couple job changes. I was CMO of another content marketing agency. I got laid off because the agency that bought that company already had a CMO, and I had a 6-month package, and I was able to sit back and be like, okay, well, what do I really want to do? And the idea of going back into the corporate world kind of made me like nauseous. And so I was like, I really want to.
But what made you nauseous? Was it like too many people again to deal with, or?
Yeah, and it was the idea, all of that politics and having to climb the corporate ladder again and things like that. And so I had an idea of like, well, what if companies could have a person like me that actually did all of the stuff, but you know, they didn't have to pay me full time. I could just come in and advise them and create all of their campaign materials and then walk away when they were done.
Yeah.
Right. And so what happened is I built a PowerPoint presentation and I started shopping it around to people. And, you know, because I had big connections from my jobs, I was able to land the meetings, and the offering itself was so compelling to be able to create great work without all of that cost and complexity that I ended up getting booked on some jobs. But I would say by the most uncomfortable part of doing what I'm doing is the fact that we're a bootstrap startup, meaning we don't have any funding, right? Mm-hmm. And so if we don't make any money, then the business doesn't exist anymore, you know. And we have a nice studio here, we have full-time employees. Being responsible for that and for all of those people and to my family, and knowing like if the dollars don't come in, this all goes up in smoke, that is very uncomfortable. very, very stressful, and keeps my partner and I awake at night, but it also keeps us super motivated and always cranking.
Yeah, and on edge to just keep going for sure.
Yeah, that's right.
Because a lot of millionaires I talk to, like after they get that 10 million that they were praying for since they're 10, well, the flame is done there because you reach the pinpoint. And if you're always looking for something to build and or something to keep and having that foundation, well, for sure, you just that flame is never gonna close itself. That's for sure.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
What's the real difference between a brand that wins and one that just has the marketing budget?
A brand that wins knows exactly who they are and they're dead focused on what they're trying to achieve. And the brand that doesn't is fumbling around. They're not exactly sure who they are, and they're not, because of that, they're not exactly sure what they're trying to achieve. As an example, I like to bring up the insurance industry a lot because they spend a ton of money on advertising. And, you know, a brand that absolutely kills it is Geico, right? Because those ads, like, those ads are funny. People remember them. People remember what
they know them by heart.
Right. Yeah, they talk about them.
I know them
right?
by heart.
Right. They know what the message is. Save 15% or more on your insurance.
You can't forget that. It's locked in our head forever.
Right. And then so because of that, people have purchase intent. They'll go to the website and check to see if they could save 15%. On the flip side are companies like Liberty Mutual or State Farm, where it's like they have ads, you might remember them, but you're not really sure what the message was, right? Like they don't have a compelling message like save 15% or more. And in fact, what both of those insurance companies tend to sell is bundle your insurance with us and you can save money, which is not very compelling message. And because of that, people don't have very high purchase intent. And so that's a good example of, you know, one company that's dead set on what they're doing and what they're trying to achieve, and two other companies that are just basically fumbling around in the dark.
And what's incredible that you mentioned that, I just had a DC Glenn on the podcast. It just relit his the marketing, that his calls, like he's getting jobs now because like he got that commercial for Gecko like a couple of years ago, and it re-exploded that whoop, there it is. It's incredible. And that's what Geico does, and a couple other company do. Like they go get that iconic person and they just add him perfectly to your commercial without making it like something else. There, you keep the same model since it's working, but just add something big in it there.
That's right. Yeah.
What's one campaign or decision you made that felt wrong, but at a certain point turned out to be genius in hindsight?
Let me see. Here's a very small example. When I was working on banner campaigns back in the digital marketing days, we had some banners that weren't performing very well. And somebody said, well, what if we put click here on all of the frames of the banner? And I was like, that's not going to do anything. Who doesn't know to click on it? And so we put click here on the banners, and sure enough, the metrics went up 25%.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, people will actually click here if you say click here. And sometimes like the most obvious thing that you think will, like, there's no reason it should work, will work.
Wow. Yeah, that is something so small, but yeah, that can change everything. If a startup has only 5,000 for marketing, where should they put it to make the most impact with that 5,000?
I would go right to Google and Facebook if I were doing that. In all parts of my career, the one parts of the advertising spectrum where I could count on positive ROI was advertising on what's now called Meta and Google. And then you've got to absolutely nail your search engine marketing, your search engine optimization before you have anything else down.
Mm-hmm. I noticed that really changed the game for like a video to get pulled up and everything, because if Google is behind you, well, for sure that's gonna fucking help the metrics.
yeah, that's right.
What are three brutal mistakes that, or maybe two, that most companies make when they try to go viral?
Well, I think the first mistake that people make is trying to go viral. Like, going viral is something that
it's unpredictable. Normally,
it's unpredictable, right? And if you try and go viral, a lot of times you end up doing things that are inauthentic to yourself, right?
Try too hard, yeah.
Yeah, you try too hard, and then you just look silly. Whereas if you just try and communicate authentically and communicate who you are and what you're trying to be, then look, you may not go viral, but you're going to have good, authentic content out there. And you never know, anything can hit, right?
Yeah, fucking anything. incredible. I like that girl Cash Me Outside. How about that? Like she was nobody. Like she won a Dr. Phil at 13, and now she's a mega millionaire. So it's literally a phrase could change your life. A commercial could change your life. So just trying to go viral for sure. You're probably not ending up going viral there.
I mean, to your point, a friend of mine was showing me a video the other day that it was a fish and chips company, in England. And all it was a first person view of somebody ordering the fish and chips. And it had 25 million views.
Wow.
Right? Like,
something that simple,
there was nothing to it. There was no big surprise, big aha. It was just somebody ordering fish and chips.
Wow. It's like that Captain Morgan commercial. Guys talk at a bar just normal. You don't even hear the conversation. And there's one that just put his foot on a chair and bang, it becomes that thing in. He's Captain Morgan out of nowhere. They transfer it. And I always found that cool when I was a kid before I started drinking at like 20 something. I was like, I want to test that beer out one day only because it looks so cool. That's how a commercial can really transfer your vision of that object there.
That's true.
How do you separate a good idea from the one that has a social scalable momentum behind it?
Well, I think if you focus on the 5 core metrics, that's really the thing that will separate a good idea from a bad one.
So people should go with that checklist, like when they're going through that little video to try to hit people, like really check, do you have those 5 things in it?
Yeah, for sure. It's like, are people going to remember it? Are people going to remember what you're saying? Are people going to like it? And at the end of the day, it's going to motivate people to buy it. And a lot of, like, I know because it happened to me as a client, you lose track of, what are the metrics you're really trying to drive. And if you work with ad agencies and media agencies, there's so many metrics thrown at you, hundreds, thousands of metrics that you can often lose focus. And if you just focus on those 5 core things, that will guide you correctly every time.
What's a checklist for building trust in high stakes boardroom filled with politics and egos? Is there like a tips that you could give some people that are going into that boardroom to because they have a plan and they just want to like show it to people?
Yeah, I mean, I would say just focus on what are the real authentic truths and don't try and be too crazy. And then in terms of, a lot of people get distracted when they're trying to think of ads. They try and think of something that nobody's ever done or that's so outrageous. The reality is that there's only so many bits in advertising. And if you look at other things that have worked and then you just put your own spin on it, that's often the best way to get to a really good ad.
Yeah, because it tells you like the behind the scenes, like why that worked in particular, and you just gotta tweak it and make it your own in your way without stealing the complete idea, and you could have something good there.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So for the critical thinking outside the box situations, what's a mistake you made in your career or life that you definitely didn't repeat twice?
I would say, there's times where I didn't stick with things long enough that
you should have been more patient for,
that I went into certain jobs and I was like, this isn't working. And then I just left. And then later I was like, you know what? I could have stuck that out longer and I bet it would have worked out. That's happened certainly a few times and certainly a mistake that I won't make again.
Name 2 things that people should try at least once in their life.
People should go skiing for sure. And people should just get outside more in general.
That is some great advice, honestly, for because most people now today, they're the worst thing you could say to a kid is, I'm gonna close the Wi-Fi, they're like, no. And me and my mom back in the day is like, I'll lock you inside. I'm like, no, don't do that, because life is outside. And now it's complete flip 20 years and 30 years later. What's one personal favorite achievement of yours in your career or life that you're most proud of?
I mean, starting Wild Gravity is probably way up there with my most proud moments. It was definitely a scary endeavor, something that I went into with that was true to my heart, and to have it so well received is, definitely, among the most rewarding things that I've ever done in my life.
For sure. In your line of work, what's the most important skill or trait you think a person should have?
I think good communication skills are the most important thing in general to have. If you're not able to say what you're doing and why you're doing it, then just doing the thing often falls flat. Like we have a saying here that there's two types of bartenders, right? When you go to a busy bar, there's one type of bartender that's heads down, they're cranking out drinks. You come to the bar, you don't know if they've seen you or not. You're like, when am I going to get to order? And then the other type of bartender has their head up, and then when you walk in, they're still cranking out drinks, but they'll throw down a cocktail napkin in front of you and they'll be like, I'm super busy, but I'll be right with you, right? And both bartenders are making the same amount of drinks, but one is communicating. They're engaging with you and they're giving you status. And then you know that you are seen as a customer. And so, you know, which one's going to get more tips, which one's going to get the promotion. It's the one with the good communication skills that's engaging.
Okay. Goddamn right. Oh yeah, that is for sure. That's a great example. Because for sure you're like, oh man, that girl's working so hard. She has her head down the whole time. But the other one that is like, I see you right now, but here's the menu. And like, at least you know where you're going with her, and you're be like, man, that's thoughtful. I would have left her more tips for sure.
Right. That's right. Like the ones that's looking down, you're trying to get their eye contact and see you. But if the guy, you know, throws down the cocktail napkin, then you can just start talking to your friend again, because you know that they'll be over whenever they're ready. Yeah.
Can you share an instance of where your intuition or gut feeling led you to make a particular decision?
I mean, there was a lot of times in the ad development process where things either just feel right or they don't feel right. And so 9 times out of 10, if it feels wrong, it's going to be wrong. And if it feels right, it's going to be right.
So people should really go with their instincts or intuition way more for stuff like that there.
Yeah, I think like along the lines of Malcolm Gladwell's Blink is you need to develop an expertise. And once you've developed an expertise, then you can start to really trust your gut.
So we're done the critical thinking part. What's one of the most underrated skill that made you millions that doesn't show up on any of your resumes there?
I think doing the right thing.
Like being genuine?
Being genuine, and also like in general, doing right by your employees, doing right by your customers, having integrity. Even when people can't see it per se, people feel that, and then over time it builds a reputation. And that doing the right thing is not just something to do because it's nice. It's actually an investment, and it's an investment that compounds over time.
Yeah, exactly. It's something that gets built after a while there.
That's right.
Was there a low point in your journey where you thought that, well, gravity might fail at a certain point? And if so, what kept you going?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely been many times where that's happened. And, you know, we started in 2017 and we were growing 33% a year, and then COVID happened, right? And so all of a sudden a bunch of stuff went away. And that was existentially terrifying. And similarly, when in 22 and 23, when the Fed started raising interest rates so much and companies started spending money, things got super existential for us. And what kept us going was just knowing how many people were depending on us. Obviously, our families, from my partner and I, and then all the employees that we have here, just knowing on how many people were depending on us, that's the thing that really kept us going and kept us motivated.
Yeah, talk about pressure there. Right. When you're putting that money on the table for their families as well as yours, man, it's something.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because a lot of times people are like, well, owning your business must be so satisfying. And you're like, it is satisfying, but it alternates between so satisfying and existentially terrifying. Right? So it's like you have to account for the existentially terrifying if you're going to want to go in.
Yeah, it's not all fun and games on the top.
Not at all. Yeah.
What mindset shift do you believe every business owner should start adopting in 2025 to stay relevant to the marketing industry?
I think at this time it's more authenticity is more important than ever, especially in the age of AI. Things can become so inauthentic and so fake, and people feel that. And you need to be authentic and true to yourself. And people feel that as well. And I think authenticity is going to be one of the biggest trademarks going forward as we get more into this inauthentic time.
I think you're completely right, because when you look at because we don't want change, or for a lot of stuff, we want the authentic shit. And for an example of that they put out the Little Mermaid show,
Right. Yeah.
movie, and the girl's black. Like, I don't mind the girl's black, but in history of this story, she's white. So when a lot of people saw her black, they were like, "What the fuck are you doing, changing history? We want the authentic shit." But they try so much to do something else. Well, if it was working at the beginning, you might as well not start changing that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And if you could blow up your agency and rebuild again from scratch, what would you do differently that time?
There was one time where we were getting really busy and we started to grow a lot, and we overhired. We brought on too many people too quickly. And then that necessitated us to having to let go of some people. And if I went back in time, I would have not hired that many people. Now we are small and we stay small on purpose. And going back, I wish that we had done that more religiously.
For sure, because let's say you give a job to somebody, you want to keep giving him that job, especially if he's good at it. Like, you don't want to just take it off. But when you added a bit too many people for the growth that you were having, oh man, for sure that should have been fucking hard on you.
Yeah. So the way our company works is we have a small team of seasoned pros, and then we have big productions. We hire freelancers and contractors. And what's great about that is when the job's over, it's just all high fives and see you next times versus pink slips and tears.
Yeah. What is one of the dumbest trends in advertising right now that people are blindly copying?
Well, I think the over reliance on AI is for sure one of the biggest problems right now. Companies keep trying to put out AI ads, and people are calling bullshit on them right away. And I think similarly, people are over relying on AI to write copy. And as of now, it just rings false. I'm sure the technology will get there and get better, but as of now, the over reliance on AI, I think, is killing a lot of creative.
For sure, because a lot of people don't use it as your assistant that it should be. It shouldn't be
Right.
your personal worker that you're giving a salary to, that you're not giving a salary to. No, it's not. He's not the person that's going to do that stuff there, because the human side is gone if you do that. He has to be your assistant, the one that you talk to about what you need to do, stuff like that. That's going to help you grow, not just relying on him to shit out the perfect marketing. He doesn't have that human conscience and understanding what people are really looking for. He's just going to look at the patterns, but not really understand the human person on the other side there.
Yeah, that's right. People would rather have authentic and imperfect versus inauthentic and perfect.
Mm-hmm. And what's dangerous now with AI, like one of the biggest guys that exposes scams on YouTube is Coffeezilla. He's a great guy, just exposing the people that are scamming people. And there's people that obviously are creating fake deep fake AIs and commercials on YouTube, and they took him, his face and everything, and it really looks like him, and it's incredible there. And he was like, "Oh, go get this crypto coin and whatever," and he had to do a video about it. He's like, "For sure my fans ain't gonna follow it because they know what scams are. They're getting screwed." But other creators that somebody does that about him, and their fan base is not people exposing scams like he is, well, they would get screwed there. It looked so real there. He was shocked, and this is going even worse and worse there. Like, you remember that time, like before Trump got elected the first time, and we heard that locker room talk, "I'm gonna put that hand on the pussy," and well, now you could literally make somebody say anything. It's kind of scary.
Yeah, that's right.
Thanks again for coming on, man. It was so much incredible information. Where can everybody find you and your socials and your website?
Yeah, thanks so much. This has been an absolute blast. If you're interested in the book Hacking Advertising, you can find it at hackingadvertising.com. You can also just look it up on Amazon. Just type in Hacking Advertising and it'll come up. If you're interested in learning more about Wild Gravity, you can go to wildgravity.net and find us there and learn how to make great advertising creative without the time, cost, hassle, and complexity of working with an ad agency. And if you want to learn more about me, I am at Jon Sneider, JONSNEIDER, on all of the major social media platforms.
So thanks again, Jon. It's been a blast.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has absolutely been a blast.
So thanks, everybody, and have a great weekend.